it's Aja. Welcome back to my channel. Today's video is for those of you who are thinking about starting locks in your hair. As you can see, I have a set myself. They look pretty dang good, but there are some steps that you should go through before you start, before you choose what kind of locks are right for you. And I'm going to go through those steps with you. So if you're new to my channel and you've never been here before, I make videos for adults who are looking to pivot in life. They want to make a big change and maybe feel a little bit of hesitation. I want to convince you, I want to encourage you to try that thing. So if that sounds like you're in the right place and you should like this video. And then if you stick around to the end and you like what you hear, go ahead and subscribe. First, you should consider your hair type. Do you have long hair, short hair, thick hair, dense hair, or fine hair? All of these parts will play as factors in what kind of locks work best for you. So for example, if you have low density hair, are you trying to make your hair look fuller, or do you have high density hair and you want to make it look a little bit more condensed, make it lay a little flatter than it usually does? All of those are things that you have to consider when you're choosing your locks. If you want your hair to appear more full, it might be helpful for you to have more locks, more of them. If you want your hair to appear more flat, it might be beneficial for you to have fewer locks. Why that is because the more locks you have, the more space there also is in between each. And so when it lays down and it's frizzy and it's creating a little bit of space in between each of your locks, you're going to see more space, therefore more volume from having more locks. You're going to see a little bit less volume if you have less locks. And as far as the length doesn't determine exactly what kind of locks you have per se, but you do have to consider shrinkage. Just like when you have your hair wet and then you let it air dry, how you see that your hair shrinks up and you lose some of that length, that will happen in the locking process. You can go from having, long hair, and then as it locks, it's going to shrink up a little bit. If you want to experience the least amount of shrinkage, maybe consider something like braid locks, right? Because the braids aren't going to shrink as much as if you are okay with a good amount of shrinkage, then maybe you go for comb coils and you have your locks looking like locks a bit sooner, but you'll experience that shrinkage. So really make sure you think about what suits your type of hair before you go into the next steps. Number 2, consider the look you're going for. So there's two parts to this. I like to call it the starter stage and the goals, okay? Because we all have like an idea in our head of what our ideal set of locks is going to look like. Those are our goals, right? You have to be realistic with your goals, okay? Don't look at somebody who has super, super thick hair and you have thin hair and think, those are my goals. It's not going to happen, fam. And don't look at somebody who has really, really loose textured curly hair and you have tighter textured kinky hair and think, those are my goals. It's not realistic. Make sure you set realistic goals, okay? Find people who have a similar loose texture and hair type as yours, and you can use their journey to determine what your goals will be. But also consider your starter locks. So if you are someone who's going to be insecure, you're really not comfortable showing a certain type of look, then maybe comb coils aren't for you because they're going to get super frizzy. They get a little bit messy in the beginning, right? Or if you are really confident in your own skin, if you're comfortable with those things, go with that, right? If you feel like you really need it to be very neat and precise the whole way throughout your journey, maybe you want to go with inner locks so that you can have a very manicured look from the start, right? But if that doesn't bother you, perhaps twists will work because they can be a little bit more unruly. So I would consider what your starter locks are going to look like in addition to your end goals. And also remember that exactly what they look like straight out of the chair as you begin your journey is not what they're going to look like in the end. So if you're not 100% happy right away, don't freak out. There's still hope. Number 3, I want you to consider parting. So one of the key things about parting your hair for locks, which they will tell you if you've watched anyone else's videos about starting locks, they'll tell you the locks are going to be the size of the parts. And what that basically just means is the diameter of your actual locked hair is going to swell to be the size of the square that you parted out. If you look at the beginning of my journey, my locks were so skinny and so tiny that I really thought I was going to have like a sister locks type of look. And come to find out, not quite. And that's because I was looking at my loose hair condensed pre-locking and thinking, yes, this is as skinny as it gets. But I wasn't looking at the parting that I made. The square that I parted out was way too thick to actually become like sister locks. And I did end up going back and splitting some of those locks until I got a size that I was happy with. And maybe these are still not quite sister locks, but I'm really happy with the sizes that I got now that I considered the size of my parting. But remember, if you have areas on your head that are particularly low density, that changes things. You're going to need to part a little bit bigger to get the same similar size. So think about that. And you also need to think about if you do have low density hair and you're not trying to look like a plucked chicken, you might want to go with like a brick layer pattern instead of straight up and down parts, because a brick layer pattern will make sure that the next row of locks falls to hide your parting so that your hair shows less of your scalp so you don't look scalpy. Because the less of your scalp that shows, you look like you have more hair. You look like, hey, you're not bald. Not that if you part your hair with straight lines you would look bald, but you might feel that way. So I suggest that if you have finer or low density hair, that you give yourself a brick layered parting. Another thing to consider with parting is how you're going to wear your hair most often. If you're going to wear your hair parted down the middle a lot, make sure that your locks have a middle part. If you're going to wear your hair parted to the side, make sure that your locks allow for that. So just consider those things in your parting. Number 4, there are, to my knowledge, 5 ways to start your locks. You can start with interlocks, twists, braids, comb coils, or insta-locking with a crochet needle. And none of these are superior or inferior to the others, despite what some locticians will tell you, because some people are very firm in their belief that their way is the right way, the only way, the best way. I don't conform to that. I don't agree with that. However, there is a right way for you, a way that is going to be the best way for you. For example, I originally wanted to start with braid locks because I knew that my hair would be stretched out the most with braid locks and I could retain as much length as possible. However, for my hair type, I actually have kind of a sleeker curl rather than a coarse curl, and because of that, my braids were not locking. They just wouldn't lock. And to this day, I still have a braid lock in my hair that I just left just to see if I was tripping or not. Not tripping. That thing is still a braid. So, for me, braid locks were not it. But if you look at certain other YouTubers, there's literally a YouTuber I watch called Dreadlocks, and her hair started with braid locks and they locked. So it can be done. depending on what type of hair you have. If it works for you, it works for you. I know a lot of people prefer comb coils. That comb coils are the ideal way to start your locks. Well, I agree if you're going to start locks that are like pencil size in diameter or bigger, and if you're going to maintain by twisting. I don't agree that comb coils are the best way to start your locks if your locks are going to be skinnier than your coil. So if your own hair curls, and if your locks are going to be skinnier than that curl, I just don't think it works. I don't think it works. It's very hard for your hair to condense tighter than it naturally curls. So if you want skinnier locks than that, I don't think you should start with comb coils. That's just my opinion. I be wrong sometimes, but it's what I've observed in my own head and in a few other people's heads as well. I'd say interlocks if you want really, really skinny locks and you want them to be uniform. Twists if you're planning to do it yourself because it will be easier. And crochet if you have somebody else to do it for you. Maybe you can do crochet locks yourself. It's all up to your own skill level, but also crochet if you want it to look like locks as soon as possible. These are all ways to start your lock. There's also the option to start your locks by just not combing your hair anymore. Because, eventually hair just tangles and it just does it itself, and that would be called free-forming. If you don't have a precise look that you're going for, free-forming will work. And if you do have a precise look that you're going for, I don't think free-forming will work because the hair gonna do what it wants to do. It's not gonna do what you want it to do. You know what I'm saying? Yes, okay. What method you use to start your locks will also depend on who's starting them for you, right? If you're gonna do it yourself, certain of these methods take more research and more trial and error. And certain of these methods are easy peasy lemon squeezy. You can do it yourself. You can do it fast, or you can do it slow. So I would just consider whether you're going to do it yourself or somebody's going to do it for you. And how much are you willing to pay? Because I'm going to tell you right now, them interlocks, Microlocs, micro interlocks, sister locks, them interlocks be costing. They cost, okay? There's different price points for each of these. I also would say that if you're planning to start locks via braids or twists, I would not tell your braider that because they be wanting to upcharge because they know you're not coming back again. They want to charge more to start your locks than they would normally charge to just give you some braids with your own hair. So don't fall into that trap. Finally, step number 5. This is the last thing you consider before you go ahead and commit to your lock journey, and that is how are you going to maintain them? Are you planning to maintain them by yourself, or are you going to go to a salon? Personally, I would always recommend that you at least opt for maintenance that you could do by yourself, even if you're planning to go to a salon, because you never know. A worldwide pandemic could come and close down all the salons, and then you're stuck in the house, and then what are you going to do? So I would recommend choosing a method that you can do for yourself or learning how to do it for yourself before you commit to the journey. But the different methods for maintenance you could do is interlocking, you could do retwisting. Retwisting sometimes comes with palm rolling, and then there's crochet maintenance, and then there's free-forming. So free-forming obviously being the easiest of all of these, but again, free-forming means you don't do maintenance so much. You wash your hair, but you don't retwist it or try and make it form a lock. You just let it do what it do. And I really respect people who can commit to their lock journey to that extent. However, if you're looking for a certain look, then I don't recommend free-forming, because free-forming is not going to give you the look that you want. It's going to do whatever it wants to do. It's going to give you the look it wants to give you. And I know hair doesn't really have a mind and thoughts and wants, but just, it's not going to do whatever your plan is, probably. Retwisting would be the second easiest, right? But depending on the size of your locks, the density and or the texture of your hair, retwisting may not work for you. For example, if you have very, very skinny locks, you probably don't want to retwist because you might twist that thing right up out your head, okay? You might twist a few strands loose and then it comes off in your hand. Just real talk, you don't retwist really, really small locks unless you know that you have that strong hair or that thick hair that can handle it. Because you know your hair better than I know your hair, okay? If you have super thick locks, retwisting it will probably work well for you. Then there's interlocking. Interlocking is probably going to be a good choice for the really, really tiny locks, but you don't have to do it that way. You can definitely interlock thick locks. I've done it before. I have a video on my channel, you can view it right here, where I interlocked my friend's thick locks and they look just fine. Okay, I think that's about it. Those are the things that you need to consider before you get locks, before you start your lock journey. So if you can think of anything else that maybe should be considered before locking up your hair, go ahead and leave that in the comments section. And also in the description bar, I will leave the interlocking tool that I use from Amazon. It's an affiliate link, because you know the girl is trying to get some coins. But yeah, so check that out, maybe make a purchase or something. But other than that, I think I am finished for the day. So thank you so much for watching Vlogmas day, what day is it now? Day 5? Vlogmas day 5. So bye. I want you to click on this link over here. No, this link over here.